Imagine stepping onto the most luxurious ship ever built. A ship so massive, so advanced, and so confident in its design that people believed it could never sink. This ship was the RMS Titanic. What was meant to be a celebration of human progress became one of the deadliest maritime disasters in history. The story of the Titanic is not just about a ship hitting an iceberg. It is a story of ambition, pride, social inequality, human courage, and tragic mistakes that forever changed the world. In the early 1900s, crossing the Atlantic Ocean was becoming more common than ever. Millions of people were traveling between Europe and America for business, immigration, and opportunity. Shipping companies competed fiercely to attract passengers, and luxury became the ultimate selling point. The White Star Line, one of the leading shipping companies of the time, decided to build a new class of ships that would focus on comfort rather than speed. These ships would be larger, more elegant, and more advanced than anything the world had ever seen. Titanic was one of them. Construction of the Titanic began in 1909 in Belfast, Ireland. At the time, it was the largest moving object ever created by humans. Nearly 900 feet long and weighing over 46,000 tons, Titanic towered above the docks. It featured cutting-edge technology, including 16 watertight compartments designed to keep the ship afloat even if part of the hull was damaged. This design led many people to believe that the ship was practically unsinkable. Although the company never officially called it that, the idea spread quickly among passengers and newspapers. Titanic was not just impressive in size, it was extraordinary in luxury. First-class passengers lived in absolute comfort, enjoying grand staircases, fine dining, private lounges, a swimming pool, a gym, and even Turkish baths. Second-class passengers enjoyed accommodations better than first class on many other ships, with comfortable cabins and elegant dining rooms. Third-class passengers, mostly immigrants hoping for a new life in America, had simpler living conditions but still better than many ships of the time. Despite this, clear social divisions existed on board, and those divisions would later have tragic consequences. On April 10, 1912, Titanic set sail from Southampton, England, on its maiden voyage to New York City. Stops in France and Ireland added more passengers, bringing the total number of people on board to over 2,200. Among them were some of the richest people in the world, entire immigrant families, and crew members who believed they were working on the safest ship ever built. Captain Edward J. Smith, a respected and experienced sailor, was in command. This voyage was expected to be his final one before retirement. As Titanic sailed across the Atlantic, several ice warnings were sent by nearby ships. These messages warned of icebergs and large ice fields ahead. While the warnings were received, they were not treated with urgency. Icebergs were common during that time of year, the sea appeared calm, and confidence in the ship's design remained high. Titanic continued traveling at near maximum speed through dangerous waters. Late on the night of April 14, 1912, the ocean was eerily calm. There were no waves breaking against icebergs, making them harder to spot. The lookout crew did not have binoculars, further reducing visibility. At 11:40 p.m., an iceberg suddenly appeared directly in the ship's path. Despite an attempt to turn away, it was too late. The iceberg scraped along the side of the Titanic, damaging the hull beneath the waterline. At first, many passengers barely noticed the collision. There was no dramatic crash, just a mild shudder. Some passengers even joked about it, kicking pieces of ice that had fallen onto the deck. But below deck, water was pouring in rapidly. The iceberg had damaged 6 watertight compartments. Titanic was only designed to survive flooding in 4. Slowly and silently, the ship began to sink. As engineers inspected the damage, the reality became impossible to deny. Titanic was doomed. Yet many passengers still struggled to believe it. How could such a powerful ship sink? Crew members began preparing the lifeboats, but here lay one of the greatest tragedies of the disaster. Titanic carried only 20 lifeboats, enough for just over half of the people on board. At the time, safety regulations were outdated, and designers never expected a full evacuation to be necessary. When evacuation began, confusion spread quickly. The order of women and children first was enforced, but it was applied unevenly. Many lifeboats were launched half-empty, as passengers hesitated to leave what they believed was a safe ship. First-class passengers had easier access to the decks, while many third-class passengers were delayed by locked gates, language barriers, and poor communication. By the time they reached the lifeboats, it was often too late. Despite the chaos, extraordinary acts of bravery unfolded. Crew members worked tirelessly to load lifeboats, knowing they might never escape themselves. Musicians continued to play music to keep passengers calm, even as the ship tilted dangerously. Couples chose to remain together rather than be separated. Strangers comforted one another in the face of death. These moments of humanity shone through the darkness of the disaster. As the ship's bow sank deeper into the ocean, the stern rose high into the air. Furniture slid across decks. Lights flickered, then went out. At 2:20 a.m. on April 15, 1912, Titanic broke apart and disappeared beneath the icy Atlantic Ocean. The water temperature was below freezing. Those who entered the water faced immediate hypothermia, and most died within minutes. The cries for help gradually faded into silence. More than an hour later, the rescue ship Carpathia arrived after responding to Titanic's distress signals. It pulled 705 survivors from lifeboats scattered across the sea. Over 1,500 people had lost their lives. Entire families were gone. Dreams of a new future ended in the darkness of the ocean. For decades, Titanic remained lost beneath the sea. In 1985, the wreck was finally discovered more than 2 miles below the surface. The ship lay broken in two, preserved in haunting stillness. The discovery renewed global interest in the tragedy and provided valuable insights into how the ship actually sank. The sinking of the Titanic changed maritime history forever. New international safety laws were introduced. Ships were required to carry enough lifeboats for everyone on board. Ice patrols were established to monitor dangerous waters. Radio communication became mandatory around the clock. These changes have saved countless lives since. More than a century later, the Titanic still captures the world's imagination. It represents the heights of human ambition and the dangers of overconfidence. It reminds us that technology cannot replace caution, and progress must always be balanced with responsibility. Titanic was not just a ship. It was a powerful lesson written in steel, ice, and human lives. And that is why the story of the Titanic continues to be told, remembered, and studied even today.